We had one sheet of paperwork we're getting that my vice chair realized wasn't correct in there, so we'll be getting that. But we can work on something else in the meantime. So, Senator Payne, if you would not mind doing an invocation for us.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today, Lord, and we thank you for all our many blessings. Thank you for our safe travels to the Capitol today and for the business of the people before our state. Lord, just lead us and guide us in all things before us. Give us clear eyes and minds of discernment, that we will represent your interest and serve you, so that your will be done. For us in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So I think we will go first to a continuation of yesterday. That was Representative Leverett had a House Bill 934. If you want to get up to the podium there, up at the podium here would be best. For those that weren't here, the SPLOST right now, you set a period of time up to, in this case, a maximum of 5 years for the T-SPLOST, and the other SPLOST run through the term. This particular SPLOST, when the money is collected, you stop it on the last quarter. Now, when I was a county commissioner back in the old days, 20-something years ago, that's how I think they all were. We would stop it on the next quarter. But that's been changed for the others since then, and not this one. And then the other issue that I'm really not crazy about is all the times for SPLOST elections. You know, March is one of the dates listed, and I don't want people scheduling SPLOST when they think nobody's going to show up, kind of thing. So I'd like to encourage turnout. Anyway. Now that I've stolen your thunder, go ahead and talk to us.
Thank you for that glowing intro, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to speak today on House Bill 934. As you aptly summarized, although with a different slant that I might bring to the argument, it does amend the single county T-SPLOST statute. It does not affect the regional T-SPLOST, which I think you're probably also familiar with. And you said it very succinctly. Right now, the tax, if approved by the voters of a single county, runs until a set amount is collected and then stops in the next quarter. And usually counties, because we always have transportation needs, counties will often put it on for another referendum. So you have the referendum getting levied and applied, and then merchants stop collecting it. And then at some point they start collecting again, and then they'll stop collecting it. So instead of having it kind of switch on and off, we're trying to make it where it just is like every other SPLOST. Once it gets approved by the voters, the ballot question is clear. It's authorized for up to a full 5-year period. But we do still keep a few, really all of the guidelines that were in place in effect. So first of all, the county has to have an intergovernmental agreement with the cities in its jurisdiction on how the money will be spent, delineating either specific projects or categories of the types of expenditures like resurfacing, paving, what have you. Secondly, of course, the county commission can't levy the tax. They can call a referendum for the tax, and the voters of the county have to approve it. So it cannot be imposed on the people of the county against their will. They have to voluntarily believe that the tax is justified. And then there is also a reporting requirement that the county has to periodically report on how the proceeds of the tax are being spent to show that they're applying it to the projects that they've told folks they would apply it to. One other point on this, so we think it does encourage cooperation between cities and counties, because in order for it to run a set amount of time rather than up until a set amount of money, you have to have the intergovernmental agreement. So the cities and the counties have to agree. Secondly, this is not retroactive. I know a number of counties have had some issues. I believe, Mr. Chairman, you referred yesterday to another bill that added an extra date, which will be sunsetted. This bill does none of that. It simply applies prospectively. So if it does pass and gets signed by the governor, any referendum that is called by a county after the effective date of this act would be subject to these new rules. But it does nothing to change an existing T-SPLOST that's already been assessed and levied by a vote of the people in the particular county. So this is not retroactive, it's just prospective.
All right. Any questions from the committee? Senator Gooch?
I was looking quickly through the bill, and I don't see anything referencing the dates of these elections. Can you tell us, under this bill, if it passes, what dates would be available for counties to have this referendum?
Yes, sir. If I have my list, I will be glad to. It's so that this does not change. Thank you, Kathleen. This does not change the existing law on that particular issue. So right now in the election code, any referendum, special election referendum, in odd numbered years can be held only on the third Tuesday in March or the November election. In even numbered years, it can be held on the third Tuesday in March. The date of and in conjunction with a presidential preference primary if one is held that year. The date of the general primary or the November election. So you have more options in even numbered years. You only have two particular dates you can call it during odd numbered years. But this bill does not alter or change that. There was another bill earlier this year that did a limited temporary addition of one date, but this has no impact on those dates. So I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm not cleaning that mess up for you with this bill.
Yeah, and that's not showing in the bill, so to make that change would take some quick drafting. But my concern is seeing counties having special elections for the sole purpose of passing a T-SPLOS or a SPLOS when there's about a 1 or 2% voter turnout for that election. I had one in my county a couple years ago. I believe there was 750 votes cast out of a county of 30,000 people. I don't think that's good representation of what the people want. And I was a former commissioner, obviously, but I've always had mine on general elections or primary election dates. So I would love to see us tighten that up, but today may not be the day to do it. But.
Well, finance bills are engrossed, so it would be
Well, and
now
I
or never.
support the bill. I think it's better for a lot of reasons. You can plan if you know when your SPLOS is going to end. You can plan better. You can put the notice out that you're going to renew it, and here's the projects. I get the argument for it, and I support that. But I really just don't think we're doing our citizens a good justice by allowing these special called elections when nothing else is on the ballot. Some of them are in the middle of winter. Turnouts is almost dismal. So.
Well, and I understand that concern. I would add, though, that with this bill, the hope is that counties would be able, to your point, I think you said, would be able to plan better and could try to have those elections in the November
And
election
it's not just
or in the
counties.
primary.
School boards are notorious for doing it as well. So.
And of course, this statute here just deals with the single county T-SPLOS. It doesn't deal with the regular SPLOS or the LOST or the E-SPLOS or all the other local option taxes that are authorized by law.
Gotcha.
All right. Any other questions anybody from the committee has?
Be able to if you ask Blake. Can you come up with some language? Is that okay with you, Joe? Sure. You agree with that?
Yeah, I don't.
All right. Mr. Chairman, in talking to Senator Gooch and Legislative Council, I think what we're going to offer, if people are amenable to that, is an amendment creating a new Section 4 after line 50, renumbering the current Section 4 and 5 to 5 and 6. And in the new Section 4, it would read that all of the referendums will be held at either the general election or the primary election or the presidential preference election, no matter whether it's the on or off year. And I'm sure they'll wordsmith that a lot better by Mr. Travis.
All right. Give you 2 shots in 1 year and 3 shots the next year.
So we've got a amendment to this bill offered up by Vice Chair Albers. Is there a second to it? Second. All right. Any discussion from the committee on this? Okay, all those in favor of this amendment, raise your hand. All right, I think that's unanimous. So now we've got the bill itself available for motion.
I'll move to pass House Bill 934, LC 393094, as amended.
Second.
Motion, second by Senator Gooch. All in favor, raise your hand. You want discussion? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Tell you why I'm voting no.
Okay, you're number 4, 3.
I think it's 3. I just think it's wrong when we set up these projects, we decide how much money we need, and we present them to the public. They're voting for those projects, and you're predicting the amount they're going to cost to do. I think when they're paid for, we need to stop imposing this tax on our citizens. They didn't volunteer to pay the tax for just essentially a slush fund, leftover money to be applied to some other transportation project that wasn't on their list or the purposes they approved of. And I think this is the most regressive tax that we have, sales tax, and unlike state sales tax, which doesn't apply to food and groceries, these SPLOST taxes do. And I don't think that we ought to impose these type of tax on the citizens without their consent and approval, and by just automatically extending them even after the amount that the projects were anticipated to cost is essentially unfair to the citizens. And even much as I love you, that's why I'm gonna have to vote against you on this one.
Senator, this seems like old times right here. I'm used to it. That's fine. I appreciate your position on that.
All right.
I would just add that I think a lot of folks who want their roads paved or the roads resurfaced would appreciate the tax extending for the full 5 years, because it's not like that's being sprung on them. They're aware of that when they approve the tax, so that's their choice to make, and it allows counties to shift some of the burden of those projects off property tax owners onto a sales tax. I hear your point
But
about it
even in
being
those
aggressive.
general categories, they approved of repaving up to that amount of money. And that's the problem. You're now exceeding the amount of tax that they authorized.
All right, Senator Gooch, you had a comment?
Yeah, I typically agree with Senator Cowser. In this situation, I see the other side of it. If you take the inflation that we've experienced just in the last 2 years, mostly due to the Washington bureaucrats and the administration in the White House.
Let's keep the comments down if you're not talking.
We drove gas
We're going to have
prices
order
up.
today.
The price of materials have skyrocketed, but seriously, when you plan one of these SPLOS and you pick your projects, I've done it, you don't know what the cost is going to be. You have estimates. You bring your engineers in, you develop these programs and these budgets, but by the time you go out for bid, it may be 3 or 4 years later, the cost may have risen 15, 20, 30%, and that's what's happened this past year. So I think this is a good trade. We tighten up the language on allowing them to have 2 referendums a year when the most turnout is expected. In return, they get the full 5 years or 6 years, whatever it is. So I think
right.
it's a good trade, in my opinion.
We're ready for a vote. I think all those in favor, raise your hand. All right, and those opposed? All right, 1 no vote, motion carries. Who is your sponsor?
I believe Senator Anavitarte is going to carry it for us in the Senate.
All right.
No, I don't think he carries many of my bills.
All right. We're moving on to the next bill here.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman. House Bill 302. If you want to go up, and we've had a big discussion on this, before, so I know a lot of people have signed up to hear. We've already had hearings, but, we will let each side have 3 or 4 minutes to talk if they want to. I'll say that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the substitute to House Bill 302, LC 280515S. So, for the sake of time, Mr. Chairman, I know we discussed this at length. The only changes is we have removed Section 6, as discussed at the last Senate Finance Committee meeting. What's left is number 5, and that is we added that back in, working in good faith negotiations. We have the folks over at GMA, but I don't think they're going to support this. I got some members that are going to be against it today, but all it does is says this: says that a local regulating body can go up to 20% over that cost of that regulatory activity without having to refund any monies due back to the person who's getting those inspections done. And we feel like that's a pretty fair compromise. It achieves what we set out at the earlier meeting, and we'd appreciate y'all's favorable consideration. We got several here that are wanting to speak on the bill, and we'll let them do that.
Well, we're gonna. They may want to have one speak because I said we're gonna let each side
Sure.
have about 3 minutes. So I don't know if y'all got somebody that you want to speak.
We'll let them decide that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tucker Green, Conditioned Air Association of Georgia. We've worked on this bill for over a year, as Representative Moptahan noted when we had our first hearing with y'all about a month or so ago. It was encouraged of us to work with GMA and ACCG, which we have done, and in good faith. The largest part, as he said, the meat of this bill is the 6 methods which cities and counties can use to come up with the cost of these regulatory fees. Everyone was pretty much in full agreement that 6 cost of the job was not needed. That's stricken. The big request they had was to keep 5 square footage, so they still had that flexibility in using the International Code Council formula, which is an option for them. So we did include 5 back in, so they will still have that ability. And then, as he said, which is already current law, that the regulatory fee must approximate the regulatory activity. That's just kind of further cemented in this refund model, which I would say it requires no burden on the city or county. The person pulling the permit would have to go request this refund, and it gives cities and counties up to 20% wiggle room on that refund that they would have. So this is a very good thing from the construction industry standpoint and from a consumer standpoint, as most of these costs do get passed on along the way, and we think it's a very fair compromise. So we appreciate your support, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take.
Any questions by the committee? All right, go ahead.
Who exactly pays for the valuations of the tax?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Who is it exactly who? Is there a set fee or determination on with the cost of the valuation?
You're talking about?
I think that's International Code Council.
Yes.
He's asking you a question about.
Oh, okay, I see. So that's a formula basically. So they would include like the square footage, what type of work it is. If it's a full home new construction project, if it's a commercial grade project, they get to include the square footage. There would be some aspect of cost included in the ICC formula. It really kind of is just a template that it provides them that they can input that data, and they come up with, based on their cost, what expenses they have to get to that fee. Does that answer your question?
Who pays that?
Who
pays that cost?
Who pays the fee? The permit fee would be whoever's going to pull the permit. So most cases it's going to be a general contractor. It could be a property owner, homeowner that's going to get the permit.
So it is not the city or the government. It's not the government entity that pays that. It's the person seeking.
Well, the cost of the city or the county would be their regulatory cost, whatever it costs them to go out and perform that inspection, to go over the project design plans, go out and make the in-person inspection, and then issue that permit. That would be their cost, whatever that administrative cost they have.
Right, thank you.
And the International Code is, I don't know if you're asking who pays that, but it's not.
Right.
That's done by a lot bigger organization than us. I would say the book, but I guess now it's all online. So that just sets up, consistency across the country. Okay, we appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
You guys have somebody to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Ryan Bowersox with the Georgia Municipal Association. I'll keep my comments extremely brief. I want to introduce Cody Gunn to speak more in detail on the bill. We do appreciate the changes made from the original version. We do see this as an improvement, particularly retaining paragraph 5 and allowing us to continue using this. So I appreciate the work of the committee on that. GMA is still in opposition to House Bill 302 and some of the larger changes coming to cities. But I'm joined today by Cody Gunn, who is the Chief Building Official of the City of Perry and a member of BOAG, the Building Officials of Georgia, to discuss the legislation in greater detail.
Thank you. So I just want to go over quickly what this will actually do to the jurisdictions who are going to have to enforce this. The number one issue is the amount of time and money it costs to change these fees. I was a bit naive to the fact of how much it would take for our software company to change our reporting. It's going to be about $16,000 and take 5 months to get it changed, and then 1 to 2 months of testing, and then it's an hourly fee in the testing to figure out how much it will take. So it will take longer than the July 1st to get this figured out for the City of Perry. I understand there are larger jurisdictions that probably have enough resources to get it handled in that amount of time, but I also understand there are probably jurisdictions that have less resources than mine, and it will take them possibly longer. The other is a lack of clarity about with the new regulations as it concerns not new constructions but renovations. We have a large VA hospital going into an existing Kmart building. With the new fees, there'd be no way to handle it without doing either a flat fee, which would be, we could only guess enormous, or an hourly fee, and I don't have any method of guessing how many hours it will take for an adaptive reuse of that size. Overall, BOAG believes that the bill is better than what we had seen before, and we're happy that everybody's actually working to try to get a big piece of this together. But there is still more time needed for implementation, and we could have some things reworked to better work for us. Thanks.
So if you use the hourly rate, would you maybe adjust at the end if it took less hours than you thought or more hours than you thought?
So the way we were trying to figure it is perhaps because it's like an 18-month to 2-year project, there might have to be payments throughout. We could have something like 44 inspections in the first half of a project just to get, structurally in bounds. And we may have to reevaluate the fees at that time. So perhaps that's the only way we could guess it is figure hours for about half the project and then go from that point forward to avoid having to do really large refunds or an exorbitant amount up front, just because it's very difficult to say how many actual hours we'll spend on a renovation versus new construction.
All right. Senator Albers, you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure who your software vendor is, but if they're trying to sell you a bridge, don't buy it either.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about that, and you're being taken for a song.
Yeah.
In order to make changes like this, if it took them more than 2 hours and you more than 2 hours, it probably took an hour too long. So just to keep things in perspective, this is not a major change. This is saying that our small and mid-sized business owners are going to actually pay what they should be paying, not an exorbitant amount. If we really believe in taking care of those who are out there who are making things happen, creating jobs and creating opportunities, we'd do that. And I appreciate the feedback, but I do want to let everybody know here, I'm going to commend Ryan Bowersox for being a great partner in this. The GMA went dark on this over a week ago after we had all worked in good faith and the association let you down. And these group over here, we continued to work and we continued to come up and we compromised on what is really a very good solution at this point and a very good balance. And if a city or a county can't agree that if they overcharge their client, which is their taxpayers and the people who are creating opportunities, more than 20%, we've got a bigger problem we're focusing on. So with that being said, I think that we need to make sure that we don't create a red herring or something else on an issue that does not exist.
All right. Any other questions by the committee? If not, we appreciate y'all's testimony.
Perfect. Thank you.
So we're down to the bill itself. We've got a motion by Senator Hickman to approve the substitute, and let's make sure we've got the right one here. That's going to be LC 280515S. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. All right. Opposed? I believe we've got one opposed again. All right. Motion carries. And Senator Albers is carrying this bill on the Senate side. All right. Representative Perkle here on House Bill 1041, if you want to come up to the podium and speak.
Like I'm clearing the room, Mr. Chairman.
Tell me the LC number you're working off of.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. It's LC 43-2379S. That's LC 43-2379S.
All right. All right, go ahead.
Thank you. This piece of legislation is actually one of the pieces that has been so beneficial to our rural hospitals throughout the state. This is the rural hospital tax credit. This particular legislation takes it from $60 million to $75 million, and it changes the effective date regarding this change, since we're already subscribing to what we have now, to January 1, 2023. That's the extent of the bill.
All right. Do you know what number of fees? I know we've got that on some other bills. What are the fees that are collected for administering and?
So the maximum amount that can be is, I think, 3%. Is the maximum amount that is currently, and there's nothing in this legislation that changes any of the backbone of what we're doing now.
All right. Question, Senator Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you give us a quick overview, Representative Perkle, on how quickly the current $60 million per year is being used and being deployed?
It's being deployed rapidly by the hospitals. I know there's some people here that could probably speak to that specifically. I know it has kept 2 of my hospitals open. They have provided additional revenue streams for the hospitals, some capital improvements that are badly needed and can shore up the back end on the profit end for some of the small rural hospitals. They're used pretty quickly, and it is a lifeline for many of these rural systems in the state.
One more question, if I could.
Yes, sir.
Is there a sunset on this?
So
language?
the backbone. So this one, I think it's 2024 is where in the code section it goes to.
I don't think I see that on this bill.
No, this bill does not change the sunset of the rural hospital tax credit.
Okay, it does. We just confirmed the repeal's the end of 24. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Senator Hickman.
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick statements. I'm very familiar with this. Senator Albert, it does sell out pretty fast. In fact, my wife Joy and I have participated in the last 4 or 5 years, and we just paid our fee, paid it this past weekend because I was scared I'd get shut out of it. But I do know also that when we lose a hospital in a rural area, we lose that community. That a lot of times that hospital is the backbone of the community. So I appreciate this bill. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right. Yes.
How does that rural hospital? How's that defined, Representative Perkle?
So it's a fairly intensive definition, but it includes counties less than 50,000. You actually have to It's an inpatient hospital facility located in a rural county, which is defined as 50,000 or less. They have to participate in both Medicaid and Medicare and accept Medicaid and Medicare patients. At least 10% of its annual net revenue categorized as indigent care or charity care. You got to file annually the Form 990. That is the transparency piece. It has to be current with all audits as required by law. Has to have a 3-year average patient margin as a percentage of expense less than 1 standard deviation above the statewide 3-year average.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see yours. Let me get first.
Each individual hospital, the rural hospitals, because I know there's a lot of 50,000 and less population around the state. Isn't each rural hospital capped at, is it $4 million?
Yes, sir.
Per hospital?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many would qualify in the state? What's the number, do you know?
There's 55 right now that are on the list that are acceptable. I think it's 55 or 53. I think it's 55 that can accept, that are participating in the rural
Right.
hospital tax credit.
Okay. No, that's a good thing. I participate in, we do it through our business, participate in the rural tax credit to a number of the hospitals in our community, so.
It is a great bill.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for bringing the bill, and we're fairly familiar with it, I think, as a committee, the principles behind it, et cetera. I wonder, the rural hospitals that you represent,
Yes, ma'am.
would they be interested in a Medicaid expansion so that all those patients that are arriving with no coverage would have a third-party payer for the services that your rural hospitals give them?
And I cannot speak to them on that particular measure, Senator. I have talked to them about this rural hospital tax credit.
Well, I'd urge you to look
and they are
into
really
it
in favor of
because
it.
it's
Absolutely.
$9 to one state dollar when we expand Medicaid. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and
Let me go back on here, sorry. Thank you for that. And I will let Ann Adams get up and speak for just a minute on this, if she would like to. She, by the way, went to high school in Rome, Georgia, at Coosa High School, and at Shorter College, where Representative Trey Kelly was a catcher, she was a pitcher, but I guess they weren't on the same team.
We were not on the same
She-
team. You're
she
gonna make
had-
me blush up here.
She had a scary pitch in softball there when she was on the mound.
Surprise.
It's a good girl sport.
Point of order. Softball doesn't have a mound.
It's
Oh,
true.
sorry.
It's flat. No mound. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I'm Anna Adams with the Georgia Hospital Association. We have the honor of representing those 55 rural hospitals in the state of Georgia who do benefit from the rural hospital tax credit. And I can't thank all of you enough for your work on this in the past, and Representative Perkle for helping to extend this year. To Senator Albert's question previously, last year the rural hospital tax credit sold out at $60 million in September. So fairly early in the year. So far, we've already got $17 million committed in the year 2020. So as you can see, it's becoming more and more popular each year. For the rural hospitals that have been able to take advantage of this, it isn't always as straightforward as we have a capital expenditure project that we want to move forward with. Sometimes it's as simple as we need to meet payroll. And so this has been a lifeline for those facilities, especially in the time of COVID when we're having to pay what we're paying for workforce. So I would request your favorable consideration in passing this legislation, and thank you again for your support.
All right,
Happy to
thank you
answer
for
any
the testimony. And
Thank you.
if there's no questions further from the committee, we can go ahead and entertain a motion.
We do pass.
Got a motion, Senator Cowser, do pass, second from Senator Payne. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Who is your Senate sponsor?
Senator Hickman has graciously agreed to carry it.
Especially with all that Biden inflation. Especially with all that Biden inflation.
All right, Representative Stevens here, House Bill 1055, I believe. The king again of tax credits in less than 24 hours is back in front of us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the honor. You know, we are the #1 state in the nation to do business, and I think some of these things have a little bit to do with that. So I appreciate that. I bring you today an extension of the post-production tax credit. And I'll get to the underlying bill first before I tell you where I think today may be a game changer for the film industry. Some of you that were here back in 2008, I'd come to you, and if you might recall at that time, we had some difficult days. It was 2 days of operating capital. We were in an extended recession. We were looking for things to bring us out, and I brought to you the film industry, if you will, almost on a silver platter. Since that time, we have stolen the industry from California and New York. So whenever we brought this industry here, they were to get a tax credit because we had no infrastructure at that time. There was no studios. So we said, if you'll do a film here and lens it, as they call it, in Georgia, we'll give you an income tax credit to do that. And they did for years. It rolled along. And one of our economists said in 2009 that Georgia came out of the economy faster than most any other state because largely due of the film tax credit. We've created billions of dollars of infrastructure since 2008. We've created tens of thousands of jobs in each of your districts to make these films. And of course, what is done for tourism has exploded. So what essentially this bill does is it extends the post-production tax credit for an additional 5 years. It's capped at $10 million, no more than $2 million per company, and it sunsets again in 5 years. This is what's behind door number 3. We've been trying to find something that gives the taxpayer an additional advantage long term. And of course, what happens today, you come in, you qualify for the tax credit, you meet the criteria, you do the film, we give you the credit, and a lot of these folks go back home. They pay the current income tax whenever they're here, and that's what we want them to do because they're making the income in Georgia. If you'll look on line number, let's see, on section 2, beginning on line 30, what we're saying here today with all film tax credits is it's after January of the coming year, when you apply and you accept a tax credit, every single dollar of the royalties that come off of that film, the taxpayers are going to receive an income tax. Ladies and gentlemen, that's in perpetuity. So if you accept a film income tax credit beginning January of this coming year, the taxpayers will receive an income tax forever off of that film. That income was made in Georgia, and those royalties are coming off of that film in Georgia. So they're assuming when you accept the credit that we, the taxpayers, are going to receive a tax off of that. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot because what we've seen so far, they make the film, they get the incentive, and of course they go home. Well, from here, if you go to another state, you still pay the tax because the income was generated in Georgia. This is a game changer because over a period of years, instead of us trying to kill the goose that's laid the golden egg, if you will, we're asking the goose to lay more eggs.
Well, I don't know that I agree with the film industry save Georgia, but that's quite a speech there. All right. Any questions from the committee here? Okay, Senator Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Stevens. Seems like it's deja vu all over again. To your knowledge, have we measured this or done an ROI analysis specifically through the state audits or Georgia State's Fiscal Research Center on this tax credit?
We have. There was one that was initiated last year. I'm not sure of the results, but it was favorable.
Who did that one?
As far as I can tell, it was started last year. I don't know the results, but it was done. Maybe you have some results that I don't.
No, I was asking it because I don't believe we have ever measured. That was our concern.
It was initiated beginning of last year. I'm not sure if they've even got it finished yet. We'll have to get somebody from the industry.
Somebody in the audience have a copy of that report by chance? Okay. My question on that is, in lieu of having that, my posture would be personally, and I think some of the committee, that we would only extend this for a couple of years, have a chance to measure that so we knew what the output was. And then one of the things we have a concern with is transferability, which is something that we just like to tighten up. So we'll let more questions happen, but at the appropriate time, I'd like to offer that as an amendment.
And Mr. Chairman, if you'll look at the bill, we originally put the bill in, the transferability would be 5 years. We've cut it to 3.
All right. Senator Warrock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the author. I can just say that I observe all around me the impact of this tax credit and what it's done to the film industry. And I'm very familiar with post-production. as well, many aspects. And the latest neighbors to move into my neighborhood right next to me came from California to relocate to Georgia because they worked in film out there and they came here so they could work in film year-round in Georgia. That's just a tangible anecdotal impact of what we've done for the film industry and the growth that Georgia has experienced as a result. I see it with my own eyes every day.
Thank you, Senator. And they're paying Georgia income tax now as they move here.
Precisely, bought a house.
They haven't learned Southern yet, but they're getting there.
All right. So you're saying you're getting more people to move from California. All right. Any other questions of the author from the committee? Senator Rett, you're number 10, I believe.
I was just going to say ditto to my colleague here, what she says. I've seen the same thing. Matter of fact, the studio put up next to me. I was walking down the street and somebody confused me with Denzel Washington.
I can see the resemblance.
All right, Senator Hickman, you had a question.
Mr. Chairman, you have any, and I'm sure you do, or maybe somebody, any idea of what the film industry and the television industry has meant to our part of the world, meaning southeast Georgia,
The numbers,
dollar-wise?
The numbers range from 11 billion to 7 billion.
11 billion to what?
To 7 billion.
$70 billion per year?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Don't see any other questions. We had kind of got a year behind on our studying because the bill last year said May 1st we would provide those, and the bill wasn't actually signed until May 6th, so it's a little problematic. So we're a little bit behind on those, but we do plan to, the Chair of Ways and Means and myself, move forward with those this year. Any other questions? If not, we can look for a motion from the committee. You said you had one, Senator Albers.
I did have an amendment, if you would indulge me. We're going to begin on line 79, where it says, for each year from January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, changing 2027 to 2024.
Could you repeat that?
On line 79, where it says 2024 in the third to last word, we're going to make that 2024. And then we're going to, on line 83, change 2028 to 2025. We're going to do the very same thing again on line 89, change 2028 to 2025. And then lastly, after line 118, insert paragraph 3 of subsection H and strike it in its entirety and reserve it, which would eliminate the transferability option, which would be consistent with our standards here in the Senate. The last one would be after line 118, inserting paragraph 3 of subsection H and strike it in its entirety and reserve it. This would eliminate transferability, so people are using tax credits directly. So all this does is it continues going what we're doing, but gives us as a Senate 2 years to measure it. Assuming the ROI is great, who knows, we might make it more than $10 million because it'd be so great.
All right. Yeah.
So, Senator Albers, what the impact of removing transferability could be massive in terms of the utilization of this and the attractiveness of the package. Isn't it somewhat shooting from the hip to remove that before studying it? I mean, that the impact of that has not been calculated, and it might be a bit hasty of us as a committee to tamper with that at this point in the process that you've described.
I appreciate your comments, but I think it's been the posture of the Senate specifically that we do not prefer things to have transferability clauses in them to begin with. And there are concerns for how they're being utilized. And this keeps it to be a tighter and more responsible process no matter what it happens to be. And I think we've actually set some pretty good precedents for doing that.
But further question, isn't it true that it was a senator, Senator Seaball, that originated this and included transferability in the package at that time? So The Senate has in the past supported that concept, and it was led by a former colleague of ours.
Senator Seabaugh is a good friend of mine, and we talk regularly. He,
as
I think he did a great job along with Chairman Stevens of getting this stuff going years ago. However, I think what we've learned over time is we have a lot of tax credits out there, and they are a large liability, and each one of us has to go back to the district that we represent, and we're going to meet with those people and look them in the eyes and say, you know what, this is a good use of your money, right? Because we don't have any money, we have the taxpayers. In this case, we want to go to them and say, we have measured this, we have done it in a responsible way, and it's been a good return back to the taxpayers of Georgia.
All right, any other questions of the committee? We've got a motion to amend the bill.
Second.
And there's a second by Senator Cowsert. Any other discussion by the committee?
Mr. Chairman, is it true that this could be called possibly choking that golden goose that's been laying the eggs?
Well, everybody's entitled to their own opinion,
Thank
that's
you.
for sure.
Appreciate that.
We've got a motion, a second. All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like 6 and opposed, 2 opposed. So the amended bill is available for a motion now.
Mr. Chairman, I move to pass House Bill 1053 LC 2381S as amended.
And second by Senator Miller. All those in favor, raise your hand. I'm passing the bill. I believe it's unanimous. All right. Thank you, Representative Stevens. Yeah. All right, we will move on to Representative Lim, if he is here. Great to have you here with us. Before he starts, I guess I want to talk a little bit about this bill because it's a combination, and the reason it is a combination is, to me, it's a little bit of an issue of fairness because we had our part of the bargain over here, and for some reason it didn't get out of rules. We had had some good discussions with the tax commissioners. Chuck F. Stration was involved in it. Of course, we had a bill last year that was mine that he added some language to, and I agreed to it because of some tax commissioners that were doubling their salary after 2 months after being elected with, I would say extortion almost, that they were keeping things from happening unless they personally got the money. In a bipartisan manner, every Republican and Democrat in a couple of counties that this affected said they wanted that bill on there, and so we did. In the meantime, we've gotten back with the county commissioners and said, the tax commissioners, and said we've got to fix this. And they also had an issue of about 71 tax commissioners who had no retirement of any type. It had been eliminated in the 2009 era when everything else was. And so we put together a retirement plan, and there were problems with the funding on it. It was going to cost about $750,000. So we came back, and the bill that we had passed out in retirement, sponsored by Senator Robertson, would give them simply just a 401k match, a 5 to 5, not the 5 to 9 like the other employees or anything, but just a 5 to 5 match. The cost was about $230,000, very minimal. But that way we could say that there is not a constitutional officer in the state of Georgia that doesn't have some sort of retirement plan. So what we've done here is combine those two together. They're both in the tax commissioner era. That I guess you could say on one hand you're saying here's some help, on the other hand you're saying here's some hammer, because of some commissioners that don't represent by and large the body of the tax commissioners. Kevin Payne is here. He is from my county, Floyd County, and is past president of that organization. And he and Chuck F. Stration in particular, I think, worked very hard on this issue, trying to come forward. So I feel like in a matter of fairness that we should put the two together, not give them the hammer, but not get the other part of the negotiation. And this is the best attempt to do that. Representative Lim, if you want to present the bill, and I know you can present you're part of it, but probably not the other part of it. And
Yes.
we'll hear from you at this time.
Yes, I can do that. This is House Bill 1280, and I'm working off of LC 432323S, which is the bill as passed in the House unanimously. Senator Dixon has graciously agreed to carry it in this chamber, and as the chairman said, this is something that particularly Chairman Efstration, who's a member of my delegation in Gwinnett, has worked hard on alongside of me. And this bill, obviously,
Is this the sub we've got out?
We have 2,400 S.
Okay. Well, you can.
I can speak to that. I have that copy.
Okay.
All right, I am speaking now to LC 432400S, which takes most of House Bill 1280 as passed, with one slight alteration towards the end, and adds, as Chairman Hufstedter said, the retirement provision. So I'll speak about the provisions again regarding how county tax commissioners contract with counties and municipalities to collect their taxes, fees, and assessments. This is important not only to address some of the inefficiencies, to understate it, that have existed, but also as we potentially create more municipalities, we want to ensure economies of scale, essentially, for these municipalities, particularly the smaller ones who don't have the efficiencies to collect their own tax digests, or prepare them rather, to be able to contract fairly. Unfortunately, right now, as many of you may know, I've been calling it a chimerical kind of three-tiered system for how this is done, depending on whether you have 50,000 tax parcels in your county or more. And as of last year, because of the problem that arose in Gwinnett, whether you might have 14 or more municipalities, you're in a different system. And sometimes it's the county that's left out of the conversation to an extent. Sometimes it's the municipality. And sometimes it might even be the county tax commissioner. Furthermore, there is no actual statutory cap on the additional compensation, rather, for these county tax commissioners contracting, which again has led to some problems in a few of our counties statewide. So what this bill does is, as originally passed out of the House, is to create one uniform system that applies to all 159 counties, wherein no matter where you are, you will always have the county tax commissioner, the county, and the municipality at the table with that equal bargaining power. We felt that was very important. Furthermore, they are required under 1280 to set out exactly the cost of the services, and required to put out what additional compensation is on top of what the cost of those services might be. This bill also extends these provisions to not just municipal taxes, but also fees and assessments. That's something that's particularly important, I know, to ACCG, because that regards, for example, assessment with regards to waste services, et cetera, that they could be contracting for. And finally, of course, 1280 does set a cap on the additional compensation for county tax commissioners for these additional responsibilities, which is 50% of the minimum annual salary that tax commissioners are required to be paid under state law. And I want to thank Chairman Efstration for working on this. I know Chairman Hufstedter has been working hard on this as well. I'll just close with saying this is something that Georgia Association of Tax Officials, ACCG, and GMA have worked very hard on. They are certainly in support of the bill as currently written. So I'll move on to the additions in LC 432400S. There is, to the county tax commissioner contracting provision, an alteration. As 1280 passed out of the House, all of us, including those three entities, were concerned about impeding any contracts. We don't want that to essentially destroy the mechanism that we've come up with. What I understand, which you have in front of you, is Section 3 and Section 4. And of course, Chairman Hufstedter, correct me if I'm wrong. What this does is to say that this provision shall be applicable on the effective date of the act, except if you have a contract that essentially runs through the end of the present contract year, which I'm reading that as the end of 2022. In that case, all contracts would need to be renegotiated in 2023. At the same time, there is the addition now of Section 4. It's, in legal terms, it's the savings clause that says that anything that might be judged to be invalid is stricken from these provisions. provisions, which I think is a clever way to address the potential issues that may or may not arise with Section 3. And finally, and Chairman Hufstetler, I'll turn it over to you with regards to the retirement provisions. My understanding of it is for county tax commissioners, this would add the possibility of a deferred compensation plan as well as the qualified Roth contribution plan, that latter to which the state would contribute up to a maximum of 5%. This is something that it's very important, particularly thus in the larger counties, to not just focus on those that are more well-resourced. So this is certainly something that GATO supports, and ACCG and GMA are not opposed to it as well, as long as certainly as we keep the county tax commissioner contracting provisions. So I will close there, and Chairman Hufstetler, would you explain a little bit more of the retirement provisions to the extent that I didn't?
And this language went through the retirement committee chaired by Chairman Robertson, and it just simply is those that had been left out that don't have a plan, that they would be given no more than a 5% match on a 401k, and it is only on their base salary, not add-ons and that kind of thing. So, and I probably should let Kevin Payne, who represents the tax commissioners, get up and speak for a couple of minutes if you'd like to.
Thank you, Chairman Hufstetler. I'm Kevin Payne. I'm Chairman Hufstetler's tax commissioner in Floyd County, and here representing the 159 tax commissioners in the state. I do appreciate all the work that Representative Lynn and Chairman Efstration have done on 1280. This is a bill that we are in support of, and even though there are tax commissioners that will take a compensation hit because of this, frankly, the city contract issue has been kind of a negative anchor around our neck for years. It affects almost everything we try to do, especially down here at the Capitol. And we are in support of this because we want to put this issue to bed. And we think this is a fair compromise. It is a compromise between GMA, ACCG, and the Tax Commissioners Association. And like I said, even though it will cut some compensation from some existing contracts that tax commissioners have, our association is in support of this because we want to make this standard statewide. We do have a 3-tiered system now, and so we think this system is much more fair, and so we're in support of it. And as far as the retirement portion goes, just so everybody understands, tax commissioners are agents for the Department of Revenue, and we have been since the 50s. And for 60 years, tax commissioners, because of that agreement with the state, we actually are statutorily agents of the Department of Revenue. We were included in state retirement. The state retirement ERS system was our only payment for running the tag office for the state of Georgia. We've never received a supplement other than that. And we essentially were a victim of, in the 2008-2009 recession, of the state needing to save some money, and so we were cut out of retirement at that time. And so we have this 2-tiered system of retirement. So I happened to be in office prior to that, so I'm still in the ERS system. My neighboring tax commissioner in Chattooga County came in after me, does the exact same job I do, helps collect over $1 billion of title tax money and tag and title money for the state of Georgia, but she doesn't have any retirement, no retirement at all. So we have 71 tax commissioners that were excluded from retirement at that time in 2012 actually is when it went into effect. And so this would provide some level, at least, of retirement. It won't be the same retirement I have, and I will be ineligible for this retirement that's in the bill because I'm in ERS. But for those tax commissioners who have no retirement, this will at least give them some opportunity. And of course, they've got to contribute their own money because this is a 401k. It's not a pension. So we are in support of both measures.
All right, any questions from the committee on this? I don't see any, so we appreciate you being here. Okay.
And so good to meet a fellow official from your county, Mr. Chair. Appreciate your remarks, and I certainly share your concerns about the fact that a retirement system would in Georgia that was shut down and never has been able to get back up on its feet with all the future employees. And you just gave an example, not considered eligible based on their hire date.
Yes. Thank you, Senator.
For retirement, because of what do we think is going to happen to people without retirement security?
It's been a frustration for us. Since then, we have made several attempts to come up with our own retirement system that have failed. There's not a lot of appetite for pensions anymore. And so we are thrilled to provide something for those tax commissioners, which this bill would do. And honestly, this bill, if it passed, it could change lives in the future, because we have tax commissioners that may work for 20, 30 years, retire, and have nothing but Social Security.
Absolutely.
After a career of public service.
Thank you.
So we've done a lot of work this year, as everybody knows, on the pension plans, trying to restore some of the things that we didn't have the money from, and I'm not faulting them back then when they had one day's money on hand.
Right.
They had some tough decisions I'm glad I missed out on. But at the same time, if we do this at a very minimal cost, and I think we as the state of Georgia can say every single person has some sort of retirement plan that is a constitutional officer. And so I certainly support this. And I appreciate the compromise that was brought forth. And I didn't mention GMA and ACCG, but they were part of this discussion over the last year as well with the tax commissioners. Guys, let's get together. We're tired of this issue. We want to put it to bed, and we want to also see what we can do on this retirement issue that's been there as well. So I think it's a good compromise brought together. Any other questions by the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion. All right, we've got a move by Senator Hickman and a second by Senator Warrock. Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. All right, that's unanimous. Motion carries. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
All right, and waiting patiently over here is Representative Buckner. I went in numerical order. I didn't put you last for that reason or anything, but
I noticed the numbers, so that was fine. But I am glad to be here, and I'm glad you stayed, and that you're here as well. House Bill 1421 is LC number 432301. This is a bill that in lines 29 through 30 dedicates the state's hazardous waste management fees to the Hazardous Waste Management Trust Fund. This was intended by legislation that had passed before, and it just was not dedicated, and that's what we hope to do with this bill. Just about every county in Georgia has a hazardous waste site that needs cleanup. By dedicating these fees, that money can be used to clean those sites up. And if there are any questions, I do have support of ACCG on this, and also EPD is here, the director, Richard Dunn, if you have any questions of him. But this would be helpful to them to do their job of cleaning up hazardous waste sites. And I ask for your favorable consideration.
all right. And couple of three things I want to say on this. I did also meet with the administration because, I was the Senate sponsor originally of Jay Powell's bill to dedicate these fees. And then we had the enabling legislation that the governor's floor leader did. And we put a cap on there of a certain amount. And the administration is comfortable that this fits underneath that cap. So it was left out inadvertently. However, the only issue I've got, and I'm going to hold off on a vote today, is we've got a bill in that same area dealing with scrap tires, and we want to make sure that it gets its proper hearing and everything, and that it we feel like it's a good bill that will, among other things, move the fee to the wholesale level, which is where we do everything else now, from marketplace facilitator to oil, and have a much better collection rate on that. I know the commissioner of EPD is here. Do you remember how many wholesalers? I know that was in our other meeting we talked about. All right, tell us
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Visser. I'm the Assistant Branch Chief for Land at EPD. And there's about 4,500 when you take in distributors and others that are a part of that piece for retailers. And then for wholesalers, probably more like 100.
Okay. That's the information I wanted, and I don't want to get in a big discussion on it now, but the feeling is, and I know you guys have to monitor these retailers and go there anyway, but the feeling is, for the revenue part, it would be better to collect from there, and we've had that discussion before. But anyway, I think this is a good bill by the representative. I support it. I need to wait on a vote on it, is the only thing I would say. So,
Mr. Chairman, I understand, and I'm very supportive of the solid waste fee being collected differently so that we can take care of cleaning up scrap tires being in places they don't need to be. So I'll be glad to work with you in any way I can, and just let me know.
All right. Thanks for bringing it forward. And with that, there's no other business today, I don't believe, so this meeting is adjourned.